We are living through a truly catastrophic era because of the person you're seeing on screen there. What it could mean for generations. And I'm not saying that to sound hyperbolic. I'm serious, and I think that'll become clear as we go through this. Trump's latest press conference. I want to get to clips from that. Right before we clicked record on this, though, I saw this video from Russian state media. It's not that this should be your metric, your only metric. But it's not a good sign that Russian state media is going, woo, Trump. That's how Russian state media sounds, by the way. Shoo-wee, Trump. Yeah, brother. I think that's an exact quote from this clip.
Внимание, есть окно возможности, но ведь прекрасная вещь, значит, информацию закрыли. Спутники отключили у них, приостановили оружие, там убрали даже с сайта соглашения у них, так сказать, с Зеленским. То есть надо идти сегодня, конечно, по тому треку, который предлагается. А трек предлагается вплоть до духовных вещей. Там вышел этот с крестом на лбу вице-президент. Да,
Марко Рубио, госсекретарь.
Это возможно было представить эту до Трампа? Да это вообще невозможно. Традиционные ценности. Это серьезная вещь. Что, мы не будем это поддерживать? Будем, конечно. Обязательно.
Мы поддерживаем все абсолютно. Жутко нравится, как ведет себя Дональд Трамп пока, но мы же понимаем, что он...
I heard Donald Trump. That's what I was able to decipher from that. Let me read this for our podcast listeners, and then we'll get to this presser that I actually have as the prepared subject matter of the segment. But I thought this was an important little preface. He, just so you know, he mentions. Actually, let me read this and then I'll react to it. Let's pay attention. This is our window of opportunity. He's doing excellent things. He cut off their intel access, turned off their satellites. They've suspended weapons deliveries. They even deleted their deal with Zelensky off their website. We should follow the track that is being offered to us, including spiritual things. Vice President came out with a cross on his forehead. That was Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Could we have imagined this before Trump? He says. I don't know who this man is, but wow, are you ridiculous? The last president of the United States, sir, was Catholic. So yes, before Rubio, or I guess they were saying Vance, Joe Biden had his Ash Wednesday cross on his forehead thing. Joe Biden, the president. What ridiculous. Then they said it was impossible. Those are the traditional values. These are serious things. So the, again, devout Catholic who had the same symbolism represented as they're now applauding for Rubio, that's not aligned with the spiritual character that they'd want. But I guess Trump, the cheater, is more spiritually sound. Okay. Will we support this? Of course we will. We support everything Donald Trump is doing. We love how he's behaving. So just again, the state media apparatus that is tasked with defending Putin's every ambition and is a mouthpiece for him is saying, and who is that they're defending? The regime that caused the lack of peace. Trump says, we want peace. Putin's the one who is preventing peace through this murderous invasion. The people tasked with defending that regime are saying Trump is doing everything perfect. Not a good sign, I guess, is what I would say to the MAGAs out there. But I have some important news. You heard it referenced there to get to in a second. But let's start with some clips here from this presser where Trump makes sense why Russian media is so hyped about him. If you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button.
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides, I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has
They both
said,
are.
this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add,
Yeah, that's a really fair summarization of our position. A position that is in the interest of a lasting peace agreement. Ukraine needs the maximum leverage through support backed up by the United States so that we can ultimately facilitate a deal that may mean concessions for Ukraine, but will have security guarantees so further invasion and bloodshed like you're talking about doesn't happen. But okay, yeah, we just want endless war, as Waltz there tries to strawman it. But Trump says, think about how absurd that is. Do not be numbed out to this. Trump is saying any person in Putin's position would be striking and murdering and attacking Ukraine at a massive level as supposedly he wants peace. How is that? Anyone would do that, Trump says. Well, that says a lot about you then. And as we're going through this press conference, think about this horrible news. Trump administration pauses flow of intelligence to Ukraine that helps on battlefield. So crucial intel that we provide to them to help them counter Russian attacks, prevent deaths. Trump cut off, obviously, as he cut off all U.S. aid as well. But now the U.S. shift toward Russian political reports under Trump is shaking the core of the alliance, prompting countries to wonder about the risk of sharing intelligence with Washington. So Trump's actions are so insane that our allies are wondering, can they share intelligence with us? We've cut it off to Ukraine. We've cut off aid to Ukraine. And the United States government now seems to be aligning itself way more with Russian interests than our own, to be honest, and definitely our allies, such that they're wondering, a really important part of our relationship with them being sharing of intelligence, of military intelligence. Meanwhile, Trump's just rambling about this over and over and over again.
In the jobs. Okay.
Mr.
President, on Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine. And Ukraine, I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And then
This is history-making type disastrous rhetoric from a U.S. president. He gets asked, Russia is bombing Ukraine right now, ruthlessly. Are you sure Putin really wants lasting peace? Because that doesn't look like someone who wants lasting peace. Trump goes, no, I think he does. No, I think he does. Yeah, sure. Because Ukraine's actually the difficult one, the victim. But then I think because he's under so much pressure about his alignment with the Kremlin, he then goes on and poses this. Based on the fact that Russia's absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I'm strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. Just a textual nightmare, as usual, with his post. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you. Axios, Trump threatens new sanctions and tariffs on Russia to force peace talks. Note that he's just threatening that with Russia, but he's actually doing the harmful, potentially lives-costing actions with Ukraine. Inevitably lives-costing, I should say. But he's threatening it. Right now, it's just PR. Let's see if he actually acts on it. But maybe, is there any realization in his head while he wants to not admit that he's wrong? So he's saying, no, I said Putin wants peace. He does. He's seeing that as he thinks he's having buddy-buddy conversations with Putin where Putin says, no, trust me, I really want lasting peace like you think. He's seeing that Putin's doing the opposite in his actions. Reportedly, that's upsetting Trump a lot. Is he going to then come to terms with the fact that maybe he shouldn't align so much? Meanwhile, on the news that our allies are considering cutting off intelligence sharing with us or wondering if it's safe to do so given the U.S. government's actions in recent weeks, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, got asked by Laura Ingraham what she thought about it. Here's her response.
Director Gabbard, do you see this as actually a threat to the United States, that Europe would not share intel with us? And what is your reaction to that report?
I'm laughing, Laura, because we've heard this story before, and generally it's coming from those who are former leaders within our own intelligence community who are trying to politicize their titles and their positions to try to undermine President Trump's peace mission and agenda. And perhaps this is now coming from people within Europe, again, who would like to see endless war continue. The answer to your question is no. I can tell you just today.
Okay, so Tulsi's not concerned because those are just people who want endless war. Even though all of the actions we're talking about in the interest of supporting Ukraine are because of, as I explained, my position on Ukraine is because of an ambition for long-term peace. But exacerbating further aggression is not the path toward long-term peace. And as we've seen with past agreements with Putin, you can actually bolster his future aggression through ill-advised present agreements. So let's get an agreement, but it has to be one with the guarantees necessary for that lasting peace. I know I say that so often. By the way, just this is so unimportant before we get back to the important things. On the bonus show, which by the way, you should get the bonus show. We have a lot of fun. Click the join button below if you want to get it. I noticed, and it started to really irk me, and now I can't stop seeing it, that Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson both do this thing where they'll ask a question, and then as they're listening, their mouth never really closes. It's just slightly agape. Look, what, why? And then you'll take that down. I mentioned Tucker Carlson. This is from his Sam Bankman-Fried interview. Look, he asked his question, and then the mouth, it's just slightly open. So I was ranting about this on the bonus show, and it led to producer Cole hearing it, and for a moment of lighthearted relief, creating this.
Oh, why is his mouth never closed?
We try to give you moments of relief, but back into it. Here is Trump lying again about the breakdown of funds to Ukraine.
So we're in for $350 billion, and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled.
Okay. But what settlement? Does it facilitate further war because an agreement is not something Putin will abide by, or does it prevent further war? That's the question. But he keeps saying that we've spent $350 billion. It's not true. $119 billion. And even our funds are broken up into money we spent on our own replenishment of weapons, old weapons that we would replenish anyways, that we sent to Ukraine, old weapons, and then some loans, and then some straight just payments. Whereas Europe spent $138 billion. So $119 billion to $138 billion. And both of us are dividing it up as I just explained. So he just keeps lying and lying and lying and lying. Then you have this.
We're doing a good job. We're doing a good job.
Mr. President, in regards to the pause on military assistance to Ukraine, you put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of the Patriot missile batteries?
Good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there. Because we want them to.
And I've addressed that so many times, so I won't bore you with it again. Yes, but how? There you go. Share your thoughts in the comments.